So picture this. It is a Tuesday morning. You're sitting at your own kitchen table, or maybe you're just curled up on the couch.
Oh, definitely the couch.
Right, the couch. And you're wearing your favorite, most comfortable sweatpants. You know, the ones you would never, ever be caught dead wearing in a corporate office.
Absolutely. The strictly at-home sweatpants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have a fresh cup of coffee in your favorite mug.
What?
There was absolutely no commute today, no sitting in gridlock traffic, no fighting for a parking spot.
Yeah. Yeah, no rushing to catch a crowded train.
None of it. You just rolled out of bed, fired up your laptop, and boom, you're at work. It's the work-from-home revolution.
It's incredible.
It is. It feels incredibly comfortable. I mean, it feels safe because you are in your own home.
Yeah.
It's your sanctuary, really, right?
Right.
But beneath that cozy surface, while you're enjoying all that flexibility, you're actually sitting right in the middle of a terrifying high-stakes landscape.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate reality.
Because the reality is that the work-from-home environment introduces a completely new set of severe security and responsibility risks that, honestly, most people are just completely blind to.
Oh, they are. Because it is the ultimate illusion of safety. I mean, we are biologically wired to feel secure in our own homes.
That makes sense.
Right. When you are sitting in your living room, your guard is naturally down. You are just not thinking about corporate espionage or malicious threat actors.
Or catastrophic data breaches while your dog is literally sleeping at your feet.
Exactly. But the digital perimeter of your company has completely dissolved.
Right.
It used to be a physical building with security badges, enterprise-grade firewalls, and, a dedicated security operations center that was actively hunting anomalies on the network.
Yeah, now.
That perimeter is essentially just you, an unmanaged consumer-grade Wi-Fi router, and just an enormous amount of misplaced trust.
And that trust is exactly what is being weaponized on a massive scale.
Yeah, it really is.
So today, we are looking at a fascinating, highly direct internal intelligence document that we've sourced for this deep dive.
It's a great document.
It's simply titled Day 27 Work From Home Risks. And what makes this document so compelling is its brutal honesty.
Oh, it really pulls no punches.
No, it strips away all the corporate jargon and lays out the reality of remote work security in incredibly stark terms. So our mission today is to break down the three critical pillars of this document.
Right.
First, the deceptive rise of virtual meeting scams. Second, the silent but catastrophic reality of accidental data leaks. And finally, a profound philosophical shift in personal accountability that the modern worker is now essentially forced to accept.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to start with the threats that actively come looking for you.
Right, because we are seeing a complete paradigm shift in how threat actors actually operate today.
How so?
Well, we used to think about cybersecurity purely in terms of passive defenses, right?
Like firewalls.
Exactly, hardening the external attack surface and just waiting for someone to try and brute force their way in.
Right, the old castle and moat model.
Yes, but the landscape has shifted heavily toward active, highly targeted deception. The adversary isn't trying to break through a cryptographic wall anymore.
They're just knocking on the front door.
Literally knocking on your digital front door, wearing a perfectly replicated uniform, and simply asking you to hand over the keys.
Man, that is wild. Which brings us straight to the first major risk highlighted in the intelligence: fake meetings.
Yeah, fake meetings.
It's just a fascinating evolution of the scam because we've moved from the general concept of broad phishing campaigns into something highly specific.
Highly specific, highly contextual, and highly active.
Exactly. It's an attack that actively invites you in.
Right.
And the underlying mechanics of a fake meeting are entirely built around manipulating our modern remote working habits. These are malicious online environments created with one single goal:
Credential harvesting and network infiltration.
Spot on. So how do they actually pull this off?
Well, you have to think about the structural design of a modern remote workday.
Okay.
We are completely beholden to our calendar applications, right?
Oh, totally.
We jump from one virtual room to the next, often with zero buffer time between them. I mean, the cognitive load of constantly context switching leaves very little mental bandwidth for critical analysis.
You're just trying to survive until lunch.
Exactly. And attackers understand this perfectly.
So the mechanics are insidious.
Yeah.
We're sitting there deeply focused on a task, and an invite pops up for an urgent sync or a project review.
And it looks totally normal.
It does. It relies on the exact platforms we use constantly.
Yeah.
Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet.
Right.
The intelligence document points out that these invites frequently leverage slightly altered company domains. Like, the specific example provided is an email coming from an address ending in at micro0p.com,
Right.
but they substitute a 0 for the letter O.
What's fascinating here is the intersection of cognitive psychology and digital design.
Oh, I love this part. Tell me more about that.
So the reason that specific trick works so flawlessly, substituting a 0 for an O, or utilizing homoglyph attacks where threat actors use Cyrillic characters that look identical to Latin ones.
Right, because they look exactly the same on a screen.
Exactly. It comes down to a phenomenon called typoglycemia. Our brains are highly efficient, highly optimized prediction engines.
We're basically just guessing all the time.
Pretty much. When we read, particularly when scanning under time pressure, we do not parse every individual character. We process the overall shape of the word.
Wow.
So if the first and last letters are correct and the general silhouette of the word matches our expectation, the brain just auto-corrects the anomaly.
It literally just registers it as Microsoft.
Right.
Especially when the system is deliberately designed to induce panic.
Oh, the urgency is key.
You get a pop-up saying, meeting starting in 1 minute, critical account review.
Right.
You are not pulling out a digital magnifying glass to audit the sender's domain syntax. You're terrified of keeping the VP waiting. You just click accept.
Exactly. The attackers are actively weaponizing our own professionalism.
Weaponizing professionalism. That's a great way to phrase it.
They are exploiting our desire to be punctual, compliant, and, responsive employees. Because in a fully remote environment, the calendar invite has become the absolute ultimate authority.
It rules our lives.
Right. Now think about this. If you were physically in an office and received a bizarre, highly urgent invite from a department you rarely interact with.
I would just lean over to the next cubicle.
Exactly. You'd lean over to a colleague and ask, hey, did you get this weird HR invite?
Right.
That informal peer verification mechanism is the strongest organic defense a company has. But at home, you are isolated in a silo. You are entirely dependent on the screen in front of you.
It's like someone setting up a fake conference room in your actual office building.
Oh, that's a perfect.
Imagine a threat actor sneaking past the lobby, painting a slightly misspelled company name on a random door, like HR Department with a 0.
Yeah, just hoping someone walks in.
And then they just sit inside the room waiting for you to rush in, sit down, and hand over your ID badge and your secure passwords because you think it's a mandatory training session.
Right, which sounds completely absurd in the physical world.
Totally absurd.
Yeah.
But it is happening constantly in the digital space.
Constantly.
So why are these specific collaborative platforms such perfect hunting grounds?
Well, primarily because they are the central trusted hubs of our daily corporate existence. Trust is automatically conferred to the platform itself.
Right, we just assume Teams or Zoom is safe.
Exactly. When you click a Teams link, you inherently expect a secure, encrypted corporate environment.
So how does the attack actually go down once you click?
The execution usually follows a very specific pathway. You click the link, and instead of routing you into the video bridge, you are redirected to a captive portal.
It looks legit.
It perfectly mirrors an Azure Active Directory or Google Workspace login page, and a prompt appears stating, "Your session token has expired. Please re-authenticate to join the meeting."
Oh, man. And because you are already 30 seconds late,
Right.
you rapidly type in your username and password without a second thought. You're just trying to get into the meeting.
And the moment you hit enter, you haven't authenticated to a meeting. You have fed your credentials directly into a threat actor's harvesting database.
That is terrifying.
It gets worse. Often, these aren't just static phishing pages. They are dynamic adversary-in-the-middle attacks.
Wait, dynamic, what does that mean?
It means they are proxying your login attempt in real time to the actual corporate server.
Oh, so they're logging in as you while you log in.
Exactly. So if your company uses multi-factor authentication, MFA, the fake page will prompt you for your MFA code.
You just type it in.
You type it in, the attacker passes that along to the real server, captures the resulting session cookie, and bypasses the entire MFA protocol.
Wow. So MFA doesn't even save you there.
Not against a sophisticated adversary-in-the-middle attack, no.
That is wild.
Or, alternatively, you might actually enter a real meeting room. The host's camera is disabled, and an automated script just drops a file into the chat labeled prereadmaterials.pdf.exe.
Oh, the classic double extension trick.
And the moment you execute that file, you are deploying a remote access Trojan onto your local machine.
The downstream consequences are absolutely terrifying. I mean, the document explicitly lists the real risks: complete account takeover, massive credential theft, and systemic malware infection.
All from one click.
Right. Let's dwell on the reality of an account takeover for a moment. If an adversary captures your session token or credentials from that fake authentication page,
Yeah.
the cascading effect is essentially total network compromise, isn't it?
Total compromise is the objective. I mean, your corporate identity is the master key to the kingdom.
Because they are you now.
Exactly. If a threat actor controls your email, they aren't just an outsider trying to penetrate a firewall anymore. They are inside the perimeter, operating under the cloak of your authenticated identity.
And nobody knows.
Nobody knows. They can pivot into HR portals, alter direct deposit routing numbers in the payroll system, access proprietary code repositories,
Oh, man.
or initiate lateral movement across the internal network.
So they just spread from your account to everyone else's.
Right. They can leverage your trusted internal email address to send targeted spear phishing payloads to the finance department.
And authorize fraudulent multi-million-dollar vendor wire transfers.
Precisely. And the initial vector was just a single missed zero in a URL, but the payload is a catastrophic corporate breach.
It is genuinely chilling to realize that the entire integrity of a global enterprise can hinge on a tired employee misreading a single pixel on a Tuesday morning.
It is a fragile ecosystem.
But, the intelligence document does something really interesting here.
Oh.
It pivots entirely. It moves away from the active deception of the advanced, persistent threat actors, and it focuses on the passive, everyday workflow of the employees themselves.
Yeah, this is a crucial pivot.
It transitions from how we are targeted to how the system is actually designed so that our own desire to be productive does the hacker's job for them.
Yes.
Which brings us to the silent bleed: data leaks.
This is arguably the most crucial pivot in our entire analysis.
Really, more than the fake meetings.
Oh, definitely. While the sophistication of adversary-in-the-middle attacks is daunting, the source material explicitly labels data leaks as the singular biggest work-from-home risk.
The biggest risk. Wow.
It is not just a vulnerability. It is the statistical probability of disaster. We are talking about the unintentional exposure, exfiltration, or theft of highly confidential company telemetry.
The silent bleed of data. And the document outlines the common causes in a remote environment, and, well, it does not read like a sophisticated cyber kill chain.
No, it doesn't.
It reads like a mundane checklist of everyday workarounds. Using unmanaged personal devices, working on public Wi-Fi networks, sending files to the wrong email recipient, and utilizing shadow IT like personal cloud storage or physical USB drives.
Let's dissect the psychology and mechanics behind these workarounds.
Yeah, let's do that.
Take the use of unmanaged personal devices.
Okay.
An employee is working on a rigidly controlled, enterprise-issued laptop, but they need to review a massive, data-heavy financial model, and the corporate VPN is throttling their bandwidth.
Oh, we've all been there. It's so slow.
It is. So, to be more productive, they forward the file to their personal, high-end consumer tablet.
Because the screen is nicer and it's faster.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
that tablet is not enrolled in the company's mobile device management platform.
Right.
It lacks enterprise endpoint detection. It likely has consumer-grade applications with massive privacy overreaches installed on it.
Like weird games or social media apps tracking everything.
Yes. And it might be shared with other family members, so the data has instantly moved from a hardened environment to a completely blind, hostile environment.
Without anyone even trying to steal it.
Right.
And the public Wi-Fi scenario. I mean, everyone knows the coffee shop trope.
Yeah.
You're waiting for a flight in an airport lounge or working from a local cafe.
The danger of public networks is chronically underestimated.
But what about a VPN? Doesn't that fix it?
A VPN secures the transport layer, yes, but it is not a silver bullet.
Okay.
If you are operating on a completely open, unencrypted network, threat actors can deploy packet sniffers to monitor the traffic flow.
How does that work exactly?
Well, imagine a glass tube stretching from your laptop back to the corporate server. Anyone in the coffee shop running basic, easily accessible software can see the data flying through it.
Okay.
A VPN injects opaque noise into that glass tube. So the data is still flowing, but to the person at the next table, it's just encrypted static.
Safe enough.
In transit, yes. However, the VPN only protects data in transit. If you are pulling sensitive files down to your local unmanaged machine while on that network,
Oh, I see.
or if your machine has existing vulnerabilities, the tunnel is irrelevant. The exploitation happens after decryption on your actual machine.
Wow. Okay, but the two vectors that really fascinate me are the autocomplete errors and the use of personal cloud storage,
Yeah, those are massive liabilities.
because these highlight how the fundamental user experience design of our tools prioritizes speed over security.
Speed is the enemy of security.
It really is. Let's look at autocomplete. You start typing DA, and the mail client instantly suggests Dave from accounting.
Right.
But the system also remembers Dave, the external contractor,
Mhm.
and Dave, your brother-in-law.
Yeah, it doesn't differentiate.
Exactly. You are rushing to meet a deadline. You hit enter to accept the first suggestion, attach the Q3 proprietary financial projections, and hit
Oh,
send.
it's gone.
The cognitive friction is so low that you have committed a massive data exfiltration event in a fraction of a second, simply because the UI is designed to make you move faster.
And the technical challenge of building systems that can accurately parse user intent and context is immense.
Right, because the email client doesn't know what's in the spreadsheet.
Exactly. An email client doesn't know if the spreadsheet contains public marketing copy or heavily regulated health data. It just knows you frequently emailed Dave.
So the system just fails us.
This is where the human element fails entirely under the pressure of efficiency.
Yeah. And the use of personal cloud storage like Dropbox or personal Google Drive, that is the epitome of what we call shadow IT.
Oh, absolutely. Shadow IT is a nightmare for security teams.
People do this constantly without a single hint of malicious intent. You're working on a massive presentation at 5:02 p.m., and you want to finish it on your personal desktop later that evening because it has a dual monitor setup.
Right. You just want to be comfortable while you work late.
Exactly. So you just drag the file into your personal Dropbox instance to bridge the gap. You are genuinely trying to work harder for your employer.
But intent is completely irrelevant to the risk profile.
Why?
Because by dragging that file into a consumer-grade cloud environment, you have actively bypassed the entire corporate data loss prevention architecture.
All the security the company paid for is just bypassed.
Yep. That proprietary data is now resting on infrastructure over which the enterprise has zero visibility, zero audit logging.
They can't even see it.
They have zero access control and zero ability to remotely wipe the data if you were terminated or if your personal account is compromised.
Wow.
If a zero-day exploit hits consumer Dropbox or if your personal password is reused and breached somewhere else on the internet, the corporate data is exposed.
And the company has no idea.
The company's incident response team will be completely blind to it. The data is living completely in the wild.
Okay, but I have to push back hard on one of the specific causes listed in the document, because honestly, it feels like massive corporate overreach. Okay, let's hear it.
The intelligence explicitly states that a documented risk is family members or others accessing your screen or device.
Yes, that is a core risk.
Let's be real here. I am writing marketing copy or analyzing sales trends in my own apartment. I am paying the rent for this space. The company isn't.
Right.
If the enterprise expects a strictly controlled, soundproof, visually isolated bunker, or my partner can't even glance at my monitor when they walk to the kitchen to get water, shouldn't they be funding the real estate to support that?
That is a very common sentiment.
Isn't this just a case of the corporation shifting completely unrealistic compliance costs onto my personal living space?
The economic argument regarding the shifting of infrastructure costs onto the employee is entirely valid, and frankly, it is a massive point of friction in modern labor dynamics.
Yeah, it feels really unfair.
However, from a pure risk management perspective, the data classification remains static, regardless of the physical environment.
Okay, what do you mean?
We have to separate the concept of personal privacy from the reality of accidental insider threats. But it's just my partner. They are running a corporate espionage syndicate out of our guest bedroom.
They don't need to be. Let's elevate the scenario just a bit.
Okay.
Suppose you are working on the communication strategy for an unannounced multi-billion-dollar merger.
Nice stakes, Samri.
Or you're drafting the internal memos for a massive reduction in force huge layoffs.
Okay, yeah.
Your partner happens to glance at the screen. There is absolutely no malicious intent, but they process a headline.
Sure.
A week later, at a dinner party, they were talking to a friend who works in a tangentially related industry, and they innocently mention, oh, my spouse has been working crazy hours because their firm is acquiring competitor X.
Oh, sure.
That friend mentions it to a broker. Suddenly, you have triggered a massive insider trading investigation.
Just from a glance at a screen.
Exactly. You're looking at SEC violations and the potential collapse of a multi-million-dollar deal. The leak did not happen because of a sophisticated state-sponsored hack?
It happened because the physical access controls of the environment were non-existent.
Precisely.
That is a staggering perspective. It really isn't about malicious theft. It is about the uncontrollable velocity of information once it leaves a secured environment.
That's the perfect way to phrase it. The velocity of information.
The innocent slip of the tongue becomes a systemic breach.
Exactly. And that is why the intelligence document does not soften the blow when outlining the consequences of these leaks.
No, it's pretty harsh.
The ramifications are not just a slap on the wrist. We are talking about devastating financial loss for the enterprise.
Right.
Profound legal and regulatory consequences, particularly if the exfiltrated data falls under GDPR, HEPA, or strict financial privacy regulations. The resulting fines can be astronomical.
Oh, yeah. Millions of dollars.
Furthermore, there's the irreversible destruction of client trust.
Yeah. Clients don't forgive that.
No. If a law firm loses a client's highly sensitive IP because an associate's unmanaged tablet was compromised, the client does not care about the associate's desire for a better screen.
They will simply litigate and take their business to a competitor.
Exactly. And ultimately, as the document starkly concludes,
Swift job termination.
yes, these passive workflow-driven mistakes are universally fireable offenses.
Which is a heavy, heavy cloud to have hovering over your kitchen table while you were just trying to get through your morning emails.
It really is.
And it perfectly transitions us into the philosophical core of this entire analysis. We've examined the mechanics of the active threats, like the fake meetings,
Right.
and we've looked at the passive vulnerabilities of data leaks. But now, the document forces us to confront the underlying liability.
Yes.
When the physical perimeter vanishes and things go wrong in this blended digital-physical space, who actually holds the ultimate liability?
We are moving from the architecture of risk into the philosophy of responsibility.
It is the defining paradigm shift of the remote workforce era.
Absolutely.
Because Section 3 of the Intelligence introduces the central defining thesis of this entire deep dive.
It's a powerful section.
It states unequivocally, even at home, you are still fully, personally responsible for company assets and data.
No exceptions.
No exceptions. And then it drops this incredibly powerful anchoring principle. Office data equals personal zimmedari.
Personal zimmedari. It is a brilliant linguistic choice to anchor the psychological reality of the situation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's unpack the cultural and psychological weight of that specific term.
I'd love to.
Because zimmedari is a Hindi and Urdu word that loosely translates to responsibility or accountability.
Right.
But it carries a significantly heavier, more visceral weight than the sterile English corporate equivalent.
How so?
Well, it implies a deep moral duty. It implies a profound burden that you carry on your own shoulders, a stewardship that simply cannot be delegated.
Ah, I see.
The document uses this specific term to drive home a terrifying point. The corporate perimeter is no longer a physical firewall managed by a faceless IT department in a climate-controlled server room.
It's not.
The perimeter is now the individual employee's mindset.
That is an incredibly profound framing. The firewall is entirely psychological.
Exactly.
You know, when you operated within the physical office, the infrastructure itself absorbed the vast majority of the zimmedari.
Right, you didn't have to think about it.
This security guard at the turnstile managed physical access control. The enterprise routers and network segmentation managed digital access. The compliance officers audited the physical paper trails.
You simply had to sit at your desk and execute your specific job function.
But the moment you took that enterprise hardware across your own threshold, you didn't just take a screen and a keyboard.
No, you took everything.
You absorbed the operational responsibility of the physical security guard, the network administrator, and the compliance officer. You effectively became the chief information security officer of your own dining room.
Wow. CISO of the dining room.
Exactly.
And the intelligence is brutally blunt about the legal and operational reality of this shift. It explicitly notes that "I was at home" is completely off the table as a defense.
It is legally null.
But again, I have to push back on the equity of this arrangement.
I expected you might.
If a multinational corporation saves tens of millions of dollars in commercial real estate leases, utilities, and operational overhead by transitioning to a remote workforce, shouldn't they be absorbing the proportional increase in security liability?
That's the logical question.
By forcing this concept of personal zimmedari, aren't they just outsourcing their operational risk to the individual employee while hoarding all the financial upside of the remote model?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the corporate legal structure is not concerned with economic equity. It is concerned with the practical reality of where the vulnerability actually manifests.
So it's just about who dropped the ball.
Exactly. The architecture of modern acceptable use policies and employment contracts has evolved rapidly to address this. Let's analyze the specific examples of accountability the text provides.
Okay, let's do that.
Leaving your laptop unlocked in a shared space, bypassing protocols to share a login credential with a colleague, or executing a payload from a phishing link. An enterprise can allocate $100 million toward the most sophisticated AI-driven endpoint detection and response platforms. They can issue strictly managed, encrypted hardware. They can mandate hardware security keys for MFA.
They could buy all the best toys.
But absolutely no technological control in existence can prevent a human being from standing up to answer the door and leaving an authenticated, decrypted machine open on the coffee table while unauthorized individuals are in the room.
The ultimate failure point is always human behavior.
Precisely. The enterprise provisions the secure architecture, but the behavior, which has universally been the weakest link in the entire history of cryptography and security, rests entirely on the user's execution.
Because you can't code away human error.
You cannot engineer a software patch to mitigate human convenience or negligence. If you bypass identity access management by texting your password to a coworker because they are locked out and you want to expedite a project,
Which people do all the time.
all the time, you have unilaterally neutralized every layer of defense in depth the company built. That is why the liability must be personal, because the point of failure is an autonomous personal action.
That is a sobering reality.
Ah.
The I was at home defense essentially relies on the false premise that the rules of data governance evaporate when you leave the physical office.
So they don't.
The data classification didn't change. The proprietary value of the data didn't change. Therefore, the governance cannot change.
Exactly right.
Which brings us to the final, highly practical fungus of our deep dive. We've established the sophisticated threats. We've established the immense psychological burden of this personal zimmadori.
The heavy lifting is done.
Now, we need to explore the operational solutions. How does an employee practically implement this level of hypervigilance into their daily workflow without succumbing to complete paranoia?
Because paranoia isn't productive.
No, it's exhausting.
It requires a transition from anxiety to operationalized routine. It is about building a zero-trust mindset within the home fortress.
The home fortress.
The source document synthesizes a set of prevention protocols that effectively serve as a foundational operating manual for surviving the remote threat landscape.
So let's translate these defensive protocols into daily muscle memory.
Sounds good.
First, neutralizing the active threats, the fake meetings.
Right.
The protocol dictates verifying the organizer's email meticulously. You simply cannot rely on the display name.
No, display names are meaningless. Threat actors easily spoof display names to read CEO or HR director.
You must inspect the actual routing headers. Look for the typo-squatted domains, like that 0 instead of an O.
Yes.
Furthermore, avoid engaging with unknown sources or downloading unverified files, even if they appear contextually relevant.
Crucially, rely exclusively on official enterprise calendars.
Okay, so if an invite isn't on the calendar,
If a meeting invite bypasses your authenticated Outlook or Google Workspace calendar and arrives solely as a raw link in an external email, treat it as highly hostile.
got it. Implement a zero-trust policy for external communication.
Exactly. Now, moving to the prevention of data leaks and the hardening of physical security.
What does the document mandate?
It mandates the absolute use of a corporate VPN when accessing any enterprise systems outside the home network.
And we must reiterate, if you're forced to operate in a high-risk environment, like a public transit hub or a cafe,
That VPN is the only thing standing between your traffic and the local packet sniffers.
the physical environment protocols are equally rigid. Lock your screen the moment you break physical contact with the device, even if it is just to walk into the next room.
Even for 10 seconds.
Keep enterprise hardware logically and physically isolated from personal use.
Yes. Do not allow family members to utilize the corporate machine for personal web browsing.
Right, because that could inadvertently introduce drive-by downloads or malicious browser extensions into the environment holding the company's sensitive data.
Implement complex passphrases and strict multi-factor authentication everywhere.
So what does this all mean? It means shifting cybersecurity from an abstract IT concept into an autonomic physical reflex.
It really does. But this raises an important question, though, regarding the most critical protocol listed in the best practices section.
Oh, it's that.
It is perhaps the most difficult directive to execute because it actively fights against our core psychological instincts.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does the document say?
It states, report incidents immediately, don't hide mistakes.
Ah, the psychology of concealment.
Yes.
Why do highly intelligent professionals hide their mistakes when the stakes are so incredibly high?
It goes back to the consequences we discussed earlier.
Right. If I realize I just fell for a sophisticated typo-squatted domain and handed over my session token, my physiological response is pure adrenaline and panic.
Heart pounding, cold sweat.
Exactly. And that is immediately followed by profound professional shame and a desperate, irrational desire to somehow mitigate the damage myself.
Before anyone finds out.
Right, before the automated alerts trigger an investigation that results in my termination.
And that exact psychological sequence, the transition from panic to shame to concealment, is precisely the window of opportunity that advanced threat actors rely on.
I know I'll hide it.
They bank on the fact that an employee's fear of professional embarrassment will delay the enterprise's incident response.
Wow.
We need to analyze why the intelligence document places such heavy emphasis on immediate reporting. In the realm of cyber warfare and incident response, the most critical metric in existence is dwell time.
Dwell time. What is that exactly?
Dwell time is the duration the adversary remains undetected inside the perimeter.
Oh, whoa. Okay, so how long they have access?
Exactly. Dwell time is the difference between a minor localized incident and a catastrophic enterprise-ending breach.
Oh, so.
If you click a malicious payload, that is a localized spark.
Okay.
If you report it the exact second you realize the error, the Security Operations Center can instantly isolate your endpoint from the network. They can revoke your session tokens, reset your credentials, and extinguish that spark within minutes.
So the damage is contained.
The blast radius is contained to a single machine. But if you allow shame to dictate your actions and you hide the mistake, you are providing the adversary with the ultimate resource, time.
And hours pass. Days pass.
And during that dwell time, they aren't just sitting there.
What are they doing?
They are establishing persistence, they are mapping the Active Directory, they are moving laterally from your compromised machine to more valuable servers.
Oh, man, so they're just spreading out?
Precisely. They use your legitimate credentials to silently elevate their privileges. By the time the security architecture detects an anomaly organically...
Like when they finally try to steal something huge?
Right. Perhaps a massive, unauthorized data exfiltration event to an external server. By that time, that initial spark has evolved into a systemic ransomware deployment that encrypts the entire corporate backup infrastructure.
So a hidden mistake literally destroys the company.
The company doesn't just lose a laptop. They lose millions of dollars and potentially their entire operational viability.
Wow. When you frame it through the lens of dwell time, reporting the mistake isn't just a compliance rule.
No, it's not.
It is the absolute ultimate manifestation of taking Zimadori.
Exactly.
It requires overriding your own ego, swallowing the acute professional embarrassment, and prioritizing the survival of the enterprise ecosystem over your own temporary discomfort.
It is the courage to raise your hand and say, I have compromised the perimeter, sever my access immediately.
That is heavy, but it makes perfect sense.
That is the hallmark of a mature security culture. A functional enterprise does not execute employees for immediately reporting a sophisticated social engineering attack.
Right, because they want you to report it.
They reward the transparency because it allows the incident response playbook to execute efficiently. A hidden compromise is infinitely more destructive than a reported one.
Man, this has been a profoundly intense journey through a remarkably stark piece of intelligence.
It really has.
We began by shattering the comforting illusion of safety that surrounds our remote workspaces.
The sweatpants and the coffee.
Exactly. We dissected the active, highly targeted threat of fake meetings, those meticulously crafted virtual Trojan horses designed to exploit our calendar-driven anxiety and our inherent trust in collaborative platforms.
And then we moved to the passive threats.
Right, we examined the massive statistical threat of the silent bleed, the data leaks.
Unintentional, but deadly.
We realized that our own pursuit of convenience, relying on autocomplete, bridging gaps with consumer cloud storage, or working in unsecure physical environments, is frequently the greatest threat to corporate survival.
Because speed is the enemy of security.
And we anchored all of those vulnerabilities to the fundamental paradigm shift of the modern era, personal accountability.
The Zimmadori.
The reality that while the enterprise provisions the cryptographic tools, the ultimate behavioral firewall rests entirely within the mind and the physical space of the remote worker.
Which is a huge burden to carry.
It is. The source intelligence leaves us with 3 final checks, a concluding framework that demands we recognize that working from home does not eliminate operational risk.
It merely shifts it.
It merely shifts the entirety of that risk onto our shoulders. And those 3 checks are stark.
What are they?
Number 1, not every meeting is real. Number 2, not every network is safe. And number 3, not every mistake is forgivable.
Wow.
And it reinforces one last time that golden rule of the remote era: office data equals personal Zimmadari.
It essentially serves as the definitive manifesto for the modern digital worker.
It does.
The era of passively consuming enterprise security is over. You must actively execute it.
By interrogating every packet of incoming data, every scheduled interaction, and every workflow shortcut.
Even from the perceived safety of your own home.
Which leaves me with a final lingering thought. Well, something I want you, the listener, to deeply consider as you close your laptop today and attempt to transition back into your personal life.
It's a tough transition.
It is. We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing how the uncompromising, rigorous compliance standards of corporate data security have inexorably invaded our living rooms, our kitchen tables, and our private spaces.
They really have.
We have established the reality that you are held legally, financially, and professionally liable for the integrity of that corporate data, even when the device is sitting on your own lap under your own roof.
Your home fortress.
Right.
Yeah.
So I leave you with this question to explore on your own.
Okay.
If our private homes are now legally and functionally subject to the rigorous surveillance and compliance standards of the global corporate enterprise, does the concept of a strictly personal physical space still exist in the modern working world?
That's a profound question.
When the enterprise firewall is forcefully extended all the way to your living room couch, where exactly does the company end and where do you begin?
Wow.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden high-stakes reality of working from home. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay secure.